Welcome to the FloTrack Podcast. I'm Ryan Fenton here in our Austin studios, and you are back with us for episode number 696. And we're here to talk about all things running on the FloTrack Pod, and excited to do so. Today, really excited to have a special guest and really a special friend of mine that I've had in the industry since essentially my first day at Flo in 2008 when I started. Drove out to the Olympic trials with Mark Floriani in our White Pearl van and crashed at a house that the Brooks running team was in, and a guy named Jesse Williams who was supporting us at the time with some sponsorship and some activations that we were doing, some live shows out of the house in Eugene. And Jesse, who is our guest today, has evolved his career, was in the industry for a number of years with Brooks, and then has since launched his own company called Sound Running, which a lot of folks out there know and watch and love their events. It's become a mainstay for athletes here domestically in the United States. And it's a kickoff to Sound Running season coming up here in November with the Cross Champs, and really the Cross Champs signaling a kickoff to the elite track and field and professional running scene in general for that 24-25 season as we look ahead to Diamond League next year and World Championships in Tokyo. So without further ado, I do want to call on our guest, Jesse Williams, joining us from sunny Southern California. Jesse, what's going on? How are you doing?
Good. How you doing, Ryan? I appreciate you guys having me on. I didn't realize you guys have already getting close to 700 of these things.
I know. It's wild. It's wild. I think I've been on like 4 of them, So
wow.
I'm new to the show. I'm a dinosaur at FloTrack, but new to the FloTrack Pod.
Well, we both are, so appreciate it.
Well, it's great to have you. Great to see you as always. I just gave a little background at our history together. Just 2008 when I started at Flo, I was saying going to Eugene, crashing on, I don't even know what I crashed on. There's a bed, a couch, a floor, a van, your front yard back in Eugene when we were there for the Olympic trials in 2008, back when you were with Brooks. So before we get into this, I'm just curious, what are your memories of those moments in Eugene of 2008 when you met, you had met Mark already. I think that was one of the first times you had met me.
Yeah, we were one of the first groups to work with FloTrack. We had talked to Mark, and Mark did some stuff at the Olympic marathon trials previously in New York. And so this was the track trials, and it was very informal. It was, I think I was watching all the stuff as he was driving up, as you guys were driving up from Austin. And I just said, well, do you guys have a place to stay? And he's like, well, we haven't really thought about that yet. And I don't know if he thought all of you guys were going to stay in the White Pearl or what the deal was, but so I think we were like, we have an extra room, we have a house, let's just, you guys are more than welcome. We're a block from the track. And I just remember it was at the height of no sleep, in the grind of the trials. No, everybody's out getting interviews, everybody's, cheering on the athletes, kind of burning the candle at both ends. So it was a fun trip, but it endeared me to what you guys do for forever.
Yeah, definitely. I lost a few years of my life burning the candles at all ends that week, but it was well.
Well, if I remember right, you went right from there to Europe.
Oh yeah. Well, no, I went, I think, to your house in Seattle, which then I had to go to the Hansons and film with the Hansons, which I found out the day before we left trials, and then when I was at the Hansons, I found out I had to go to Europe. So it was just it was a nonstop summer, but hey, that's what I signed up for, and here we are.
And now you're sitting in a Flo studio.
So wild. But a lot of good memories, and a lot of as you said, one of the initial folks that supported what we were doing and kind of saw the vision of where we were trying to go, and here we are, still partnered together in different ways, and this one with Cross Chance coming up. The cross-country event that will take place on November 21st here in Austin, Texas. But before we get deep into the Cross Champs, I gave a little bit about your background. Founder of Sound Running, started in 2019 with the Sunset Tour, I think in July of that year. Prior to that, you were at Brooks for a number of years. Correct me if I'm wrong, 12 or 13 years at Brooks?
13. Yep.
Yep. And then before that, a runner yourself, Texas Tech, still a runner today, getting ready for CIM,
Yeah.
but Texas Tech Red Raiders, if I'm not mistaken, have some history with Dave Smith, who our audience knows pretty well.
Dave was my coach. Yeah.
So
Very lucky.
been in this industry for a long time. I'm curious, like, I'll go to the Dave Smith days. Is he any reason that you're still here today in this industry? Like, what about kind of Texas Tech and graduating led you to stay connected with this running industry?
Yeah, I'll say anybody that ran for Dave knows that, if you're going to he's helped people tremendously, not only, while they're in school, but after school. And I would say that watching him coach and watching the relationships he built, it made me kind of double down on that. I wanted to be in this sport and I wanted to continue post-collegiately in the running world. And so I applied for every job there was. I was very lucky to get a job at Brooks right after grad school. And so, ran for Texas Tech, got very lucky, ended up in Seattle working for Brooks. We got to build all things sports marketing. This is back when Brooks had just signed the Hansons Brooks, back before Desi was Boston Marathon champion, back before they had all these Olympians. They were just kind of this upstart group. And we started a sports marketing department. And, I was lucky enough to be there and work with some of my best friends for 13 years. And I think, I'm always looking for like the new challenge, whether it's good or bad. I'm always like, what's next? And I think I had, felt like we built quite a bit there, and I was getting a little like, what's next? And left, took a year off, came down to Southern California, as you do after spending 13 years in Seattle, and found, this spot in our sport where I thought sound running could fit. And first it was just events, and we've gone on now to diversify, and, we're working in a premium custom apparel line that's helping support all that we do. So, that's kind of the real quick version of it, but yeah, still here, still loving it, still in the sport.
Yeah. And you say build things when you were at Brooks. I mean, Brooks for, the early years and probably around the time, like when I started at Flo, it was kind of that shoe that it's what the doctor ordered in a lot of ways, right? It was like the shoe that you always heard people when they had issues, the doctor said, "Oh, you should get this Brooks pair." But like while you were there, it was really that turn and that trajectory where Brooks became an elite performance product that people could put on, feel good, and know they were like going to do something legit in. And so, things that were birthed around, like with you and your team while you were there, the Brooks PR invite on the high school side, which has been a big staple within the high school scene really since it was in its inception, and then Brooks Beast. Obviously, we know today Josh Kerr, world champ, Olympic medalist, and the whole crew under Danny Mackey, and Josh is obviously just one of the amazing athletes. But that was all things that were built while you were there. So you fast forward now, you want to build new things, sound running. You've started an event. You mentioned apparel. I want to read your mission. The sound running mission is to improve the sport we love and inspire runners everywhere. This means giving back to the community through our events, building apparel for athletes, and helping all runners achieve their goals with smarter training. So, the piece about giving back, like, what does that mean for you guys at Sound and these pieces of the business that you guys have started?
Yeah, I mean, I would say giving back is a broad way of saying, a lot of the stuff that we do, we try to come at all angles of it, from how does this feed back into the sport? How do we make better events? How do we make better fan experiences? And most of that takes money. And so you can sum it up any way you want, but a lot of that takes money. And so when we created our premium apparel line, and it's not really an apparel line, it's not sound running. It's like we create stuff and build it for other people. And so you wouldn't even probably know some of our stuff because we create it for other people, other brands, other retailers, And so part of that, though, is the reason we started doing the apparel was we need we knew we needed another piece of the business to support our goals on the event side. And, you see where the events are going now. We're competing against billionaires and very deep pocket people. So, we need other than sponsors, and sponsors have been great, we need the ability to help fund our mission ourselves. And so that's part of giving back, is all those decisions were made, not for any of us to get rich or anything, but to build a sustainable piece of our sport. A lot of people are out here volunteering. A lot of people out here are working for very little. And we want to create a brand that will sustain these events and make them better every year and sustain the sport. And I always say the more people that we have working at Sound Running is a really good sign of where the sport is headed. Because if we have more people, that means we're doing more and we're spending more in the sport. And, if things work the way they're supposed to, that means the athletes are making more money and that there's more opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah. Love that. You mentioned the apparel. People probably don't know the stuff you guys are doing. They probably do know the stuff you guys are doing. It's probably just not known that it came from Sound. So there's definitely some cool product out there. And a lot of these, my understanding is a lot of these brands that are activating around major events that fans are going to and engaging with and getting free swag and gear, in a lot of cases, Sound's behind a lot of the cool stuff that they're able to walk away with from the apparel side. Not in all cases, but in a number of cases.
In a lot of cases. And, we're looking to really expand that, to see what that means, and to partner with these brands and to do the stuff that, these brands are so big, and there's a lot of tiny things that when you're that big and it's a big moving machine, the small stuff becomes really hard. And so our goal is to assist them with all the small stuff, but make it, just as valuable as what they're doing year round. And so, and our goal is, we kind of talk about it as growing your brand, just the same way we're talking about growing the athlete's sport, as we're growing the sport, our sport. And, we knew that we needed to partner with bigger brands, and we needed a bigger concept to do the things that we truthfully want to do. We're just kind of scratching the surface with our events. Yeah.
Well, speaking of the events, I want to talk about them. We have Cross Champs coming up November 21st here in Austin, Texas. It's around TRE, and for those that don't know, TRE is called The Running Event. That's the full name, an industry-wide event that brings in specialty running retailers from around the country, showcases product from brands, the major shoe brands that to accessory brands, to other brands that maybe aren't even a running first brand but want to get in on that market a bit. And that's down here in Austin, Texas. Been here a number of years over the last close to 2 decades. And so fortunate for us, in our backyard, we get to go and attend, see the product, interact with the folks on what's coming, what's hot in 2025. But a piece of this that's developed over the last couple of years is the collaboration with Cross Champs and Sound Running. So curious, one, why cross country, and why TRE?
Yeah, I mean, Cross Champs is going to be, it's this like event, like there's a hill you die on, and Cross Champs is like the hill I die on. Cause I think, everybody looks at the state cross country meet or NCAAs, which is in, a week and a half. Like, we look at these events and they're just the best example of our sport. They're not on a track where it's all about time. It's a team thing. There's hundreds of runners. There's all these different dynamics at play. There's individual champions, but they're team champions. It's just one of the coolest pieces of our sport. It's raw. You're on grass. There's hills. There's water. There's all these different obstacles. There's weather, and we wanted to create the professional version of that. Not always was this possible, but now with the brands have building out all these teams, like every brand has at least one, if not multiple teams and coaches and groups that they sponsor. And so we thought, let's bring all these together and let's recreate that on the pro side. Fall is a weird time for the professionals because they don't have to run cross country. And so I think that's made it really hard, as most people right now are in base phase. They might do a time trial in December. Some of them might be on a different schedule and go to one of the early indoor meets. A lot of people are running fall marathons, or they're running maybe one little race here and there. And so that part of it's really hard, the timing of it. And I know people have been like, well, why this time? Why this? And I think we keep coming back to the reason we wanted to do it in Austin with the running event was, well, all these brands have teams, and all these brands are at that event. The owners, the CEOs, the CMOs, like every dollar in our sport is in that convention center on that week. And all of the retailers, all these hardcore, like the nucleus of our sport is in there. And we wanted to put a showcase on of our sport at its best in front of all of them. And so we painstakingly have like tried to make this happen in Austin, which Austin hasn't been an easy place to host an event. And I think we found a good course and a good spot, just as it's moving to San Antonio next year. So we will see. But yeah, that was the genesis behind Cross Champs and why we're so adamant that this could be such a fun, cool event for everybody. And I think we're going to continue to beat that drum.
And you guys haven't really stopped. I think the initial piece of this was like this elite professional race, which has been kind of the mainstay of it each of the past few years, and will continue again this year. I want to understand like the significance of it on the calendar, because if I'm not mistaken, there's a World Athletics designation that comes with that, and there's some benefits, all that. But there's also an added element this year with a high school component. And then there's also what folks at TRE know as the Indy 5K, right? Which has been kind of a separate event a number of years ago. Last year it was kind of held in conjunction, but not really on the cross course. And this year will be fully integrated into Indy 5K being a cross country race. So just on those evolutions of the additions this year, what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, first and foremost, like we're doing this in Austin in partnership with the running event. So the Indy 5K is an event. You can't have every retailer and every brand in town and not do a race. So they do this race called the Indy 5K. And it's just a 5K where anybody and everybody's invited. And they host this on Thursday morning. And that's so when people ask why our race is on Thursday morning. It's because we want to host it with these people. These are... these are the most important people in our industry as far as like how dollars get spent and where sponsorship comes from, and whether it's a brand funding a training group and funding athletes, whether it's them seeing the sport and understanding the significance of it. We wanted it to be the same day, and so the Indy 5K happens right before both pro races this year. So we're really excited about that. We're going to get everybody back on the grass for the little cross country. It's a really flat and fast and easy grass course, so they'll be fine. But right afterwards, kind of a new idea and something we're toying around with. This will be a complete early stages, like, developmental year, but we've seen with this NIL thing, and we've seen with the way college conferences are aligning and the way the sport's moving, this club team atmosphere, which the rest of the world has really strong ties to. A lot of these athletes are running with clubs now. Some are, it's still the majority of people are running with their high schools, but a lot of people are running with their clubs, and a lot of people don't actually get a chance to run as a club as much as they would like. And so we kind of toyed around with this idea brought to us by another coach, and he said, hey, my kids want to run for a club. They love their club. They love their high school, but they grew up in this club in middle school and grade school, and they want to keep doing it. And so we put together the idea of this high school club championships. And, this year with the running event being a week earlier, it's like the week before NXN regionals. So it's not like the best timing, but it's an opportunity. It's a chance to race, and we hope that it will grow into a nice end of the year capstone that like any runner, any club, any athlete can come race. And, we know state is the end all be all for most high school kids, but for that kid that wants to go on and do the next thing, the kid that wants to make it to Foot Locker is still going to go try to make it to Foot Locker, you know, and the kid that wants to make it on their team to NXN is still going to go to NXN, but that's a very small amount of people compared to how many kids are out there racing and how many clubs are out there. So this is our pilot year. It's going to be very small, but it's an idea that we think could be really cool.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's not, you know, like when you think of clubs, you know, you think a lot of summer track, right? And there's a lot of summer track clubs through USATF and AAU. Each of those have their own kind of like cross country nationals, right? But I remember even doing that after our season. But it's really like 2 races, right? It's like a qualifier and a national, and that's kind of it. So you want to run with a club or put a club together. That was like a big thing for us when we were like in 8th grade, 9th grade. It was like, hey, let's put together this kind of super club. We were up in Maine, and like we ended up winning the national title, and that was really cool. But it was like, you know, you have 1 or 2 moments throughout the year in cross country to do that at the club level. Whereas I mentioned in the summer, it's pretty plentiful with the amount of opportunities. So this is kind of like, you know, going back to, you know, tying back to the mission, the give back. It's like almost, this is like giving back in terms of an opportunity that you guys are providing for people that want to get more out of the cross season and put some teams together to get out there and race.
Yeah, it's not this super, like, it's meant to be a really competitive, fun event. There'll be kids that are really fast, but there'll be a lot of kids that just want to come run with their club, and they want a chance to do that, and they don't have many opportunities, and so they compete with their high school during the year, and this is when they can compete for their club. And I think we're seeing what's happened in other sports for years. We're seeing a lot of kids run for club coaches. They're spending the summers running with their club, but then they're going and competing for their high school. So this gives like an interesting opportunity to run for a club. And like I said, it was an idea brought to us by a coach who has, you know, a 200-person middle school club. And he said, you know, kids are asking for this type of opportunity. What do you think? And we said, well, we already have an event and we already have a venue. Let's give it a shot this first year, and then try to build it. And like I said, first year is the first year. Like, you know, a lot of things, especially on the high school side, where there's so much established real estate throughout the country, both in state and out of state. You know, this first year is just going to be, you know, come one, come all. Let's have a fun race, and let's, you know, kick off the idea.
Nice. I like it. Excited to see how it develops and how it impacts the event this year. And you know, it's cool. You're kind of tying in all levels of the sport into this one event, which is, again, just thinking about cross country. It's rare that those opportunities are out there. So it's like you have the high school component, you have the elite component, and now this industry component, which is a really, really cool piece. So looking forward to seeing that. I you know, touching on cross champs and where it sits, right? It sits in the calendar and sits within what Sound Running is doing as you look ahead to this year, because we're at a time in this year where we're kind of coming to the end of the year, right? New York City Marathon just happened, the end of the World Marathon Majors. NCAA Cross is actually a few days after cross champs, kind of the end of the collegiate season. Cross champs actually, for me, it feels like the start of the year, right? Start of this next season. When you think about the elite competition from the roads, the cross course, or the track, right? And so it's kind of the first opportunity that people have to look ahead. There is, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but World Athletics like gold label designation to this race, which I think if you run 2 cross races, right, that are labeled, there's some tie-ins to qualification on the track and worlds. But so it's, again, kind of that first opportunity to look ahead. So how does this sit in the calendar of the year in your eyes, and then how it fits in what you guys are doing from an event perspective in 2025?
Yeah, you know, first on that World Athletics designation, it is really cool. We always want to, like, if World Athletics is trying to do something, and we think it makes sense, we want to get behind it. I think, as we found, I believe the designation is you have to have 3 gold label races. And if you're in North America, that's really hard to do. So I've been in contact with World Athletics several times just saying, hey, like, you got to help us out here because, we've had at times one of the best cross country races in the world at Cross Champs. 2 years ago, you could argue that. And nobody got any points because nobody's going to go do all the other cross country races. They have to go to Europe to go do 2 more cross country races. And, so we've been kind of pushing them on, like, if you're in North America, you don't have the opportunities that you have in Europe to just go, handpick a whole season. And so, but it is, we do get a lot from that. I think the prestige that comes with being gold label, I think it doesn't hurt us. It's just, as of right now, like, it adds requirements and it adds costs. And so I've been kind of pushing back to World Athletics to make that more valuable for us. Ongoing conversations as always. But then, yeah, I mean, as you said, it like leads into the kind of the 2025 season. And so when I reached out to a bunch of coaches and agents to talk about cross champs, for better or worse, they're like, yeah, we're excited. Let's talk about the 10. And so they're already thinking about we've set the date as March 29th for the 10, and that's our, kind of 10,000 meter boutique event that we do when we host. And we host a whole day of high school races, and then we host some marquee high school races kind of in between the 10Ks to break it up a little bit. But I think that will take a special place in the calendar this year, because as of this morning, we even saw that the night of the 10K PBs is going to take a year off, and they're going to come back in 2026, which we didn't know that when we set our date. We're usually pretty far apart date-wise, so that if you run ours, you can still run theirs. And ours was 100% inspired by what they were doing anyway. So like but like in a year where they're taking a year off, it puts even more significance, I guess, on where we fall on the calendar. So we have that event, and it's a weird year. So with Worlds being in late September, USA's is the first weekend of August, which means the whole calendar is kind of a month off. And so you could come and run the 10 and have a month to put down some downtime and to kind of slowly build back up. And so I think you're going to see a lot of that. I think the 10 is going to be pretty popular this year, even though a lot of the big names have qualifiers on the men's side. On the women's side, I think it's the exact opposite. I think a lot of the really big names will need that mark. And so it's gonna be pretty exciting. And then the way the calendar folds out is we have what we've called our Track Fest every year is going to be May 24th. We kind of see that. Normally that'd be like in the heat of the season. This year, that's kind of end up being a season opener. That'll be a World Athletics Silver Label event that we'll do here in LA. And then our Sunset Tour meet, which is usually a post-USA's, post-national championships meet that people can come and run and either like start their summer racing off or, pre-Olympics, pre-Worlds, run a race. This year will be on July 12th, which, like I said, normally is in the middle of the summer, still is, but this year it happens to fall a couple weeks before USA's and the other national championships. So this could be one of our more fun years as far as like we kind of have a season opener, and then we kind of have a really primed July 12th date, which is also the week after pre, to really get some amazing feels. Yeah, that meet will also be silver. And so we're pretty excited on how that looks. We're very lucky too. We talked to USATF, we talked to the folks putting on other events, and kind of, imagine that we talked to everybody and found out the dates, and, our dates sit in really good spots on the calendar. We're not competing with anybody. I'm sure there's a Diamond League somewhere that we're competing against, but if you're going to go over there, you're going to go over there, but yeah, we feel really good about it. It's going to be an exciting season.
Awesome. Yeah, we're looking forward to it. We're obviously be here for this kickoff event for Sound with Cross Champs, and then we'll be gearing up for the 10 in March. So a lot to look forward to, and we will keep people posted on the plans. I mean, on the Cross Champ side, it's again just a few weeks away, so you can follow along on both Sound Running on their both. I know there's a lot of information on your website, but your social handles are always hot and pumping out content and promotional information around the event. And same with on FloTrack, you can keep up to date on all the news as it drops with entries and announcements and timings for the broadcast. So definitely keep an eye out for that. We'll also have a press conference the day before from the floor at TRE. That will be new this year. So we're excited to add that and highlight some of the big names that will be here in Austin. So a lot to look forward to. 2025 is going to be a big one around the circuit in general and for sound. And Jesse, before we let you go, talking about the circuit and kind of the landscape of the sport in the U.S., there's a lot of action, obviously, and this falls out even of what sound is doing. But I'd be really wouldn't be giving the fans like the insight of one of the people that have been in this industry for such a long time at all different levels to get your perspective on what you're seeing, right? Because we've seen a lot of different things over the years of people trying things and trying to innovate the sport or elevate the sport. You're one of them and have been doing it consistently now for coming up on 5 years. But your perspective, like what's needed or what's missing? Like what are you seeing out there that needs to be filled within this sport?
Yeah, I mean, I would say like I'm super competitive, and so part of it has been hard for us to look at and be like, and to watch, because we're like, we have all these plans. How'd you guys get all this money? But I would say we have such a slow burn approach to it, which is we've seen people come in and do something for a year or two. We've seen another group come in for a year or two. We've seen, like this meet be really good for a year, and then this meet be really good. Like we want to grow something that can last for, years and years after we're gone. And that's part of why we're building out other pieces of our business, because we want to be able to supplement our sponsor support. And we want to be able to have a bigger staff in place and to be able to invest in our own events. And that's just a long-term play. We don't have investor money. We have our own money, and that's going to be always like slower, I would look at it as like a business that has, they're getting a lot of money, and you listen to a podcast about them, years later, and you find out they're still not profitable. And I never understand that. We're the exact opposite. Like we've been profitable since year one. We're like trying to hire people every year. We're trying to and so I would say there's that piece of it. The second part of it is it's good for the sport that all these things are happening, because if you are competitive and if you're in this part of it, you look at it and you go, okay, well, we can't compete against the money. What can we compete against? And we find our pieces and we try to do what we can with the events that we have. And we try to, make sure that we're still here year after year after year, and that we're upping the game each year, and that we are fulfilling, filling a big void in the sport as far as the 90% of athletes, where they're going and what they need out of the sport. And we're going to continue to change as the sport evolves, but it makes us up our game. When there's new things, it makes us go, okay, well, geez, how do we compete against that? What can we do? What can we do that they can't do because we're small, and makes us get inventive and creative, and it raises all tides, I think, when that much money comes in the sport, and when people from different backgrounds and a different mindset approach the sport. I would say that it's a really net positive, because even if for some reason these things come and go, I think it still makes everybody else raise their game, and it leaves the sport hopefully better. And who knows what those things could usher in a whole new era of what our sport looks like. And that's what our goal is to improve the sport. So it doesn't have to be us, but I would hope that we were a catalyst, or that we will be a part of it in one way, shape, or form. And I believe that we will.
Yeah, it's you and I have gotten to talk many times over the years, and have had our own discussions about the sport and what's needed and how do we make it better and all these things. And so like what I love what I love hearing about from you when you talk is that, there's a lot of investment going on right now within track and field, which to your point is great. Like we have more money into the sport. There's more people investing. Athletes are going to be getting paid. And there's questions of like, how long will this last? And will someone kind of crack the nut on the sustainability piece of it? But I think what's great is that people are getting money into track and field outside of what we just have known for years is just really shoe companies. And, what I love about kind of your perspective in watching you over the years is that like you want people to be successful, right? You guys want to be successful, but you want others to be successful. You also take it a step further and try to find ways to collaborate, right? I know you've worked with Paul Doyle and American Track Lead. You've worked with other events like Portland Track Festival and kind of a number of them out there. And so always looking to be like, hey, how can we do something? But actually, how can we like do more together? But then there's also the competitive side of you where you're like, you see what everyone's doing. You're like, all right, we need, like to your point, we need to up our game. How can we do it a little better, a little different in a way they can't do it, right? So it's like you kind of bring in all aspects of how can we get everything elevated from all angles, right? From a competitive standpoint, from a collaborative standpoint, and not everyone takes that approach. So I'm just curious, like why for you is it important that kind of everything is connected and moving in that direction?
I mean, so right now we have events, and I think we have events that have been successful enough that I could look at and go, well, when we started this 5 years ago, these events didn't exist. I think if you're an athlete in the last 4 or 5 years, you might not even realize that prior to all of these professional opportunities, you could only go run college meets. That's it. And now you can choose between professional opportunities. And there's a lot. Now, there's no real rhyme or reason or connective tissue, and that's, I think, the issue. But there are a lot of options, and that is so good for everybody. And so that was our original goal. Was when I was at Brooks, there weren't professional opportunities. We had to send everybody to Europe all summer. And that was tough because a little out of sight, out of mind. And not everybody's getting into a Diamond League and running on NBC, or running on now FloTrack. So like, it's that wasn't happening. And so they were running in a small meet in Belgium and a small meet in Sweden. And we're like, it's really hard to talk about. And now there's all these professional opportunities here in the US. So I would say we're already successful in having created enough opportunities that people don't have to go to other places to make this stuff happen. And that was step one. Step two is to bring all this together and to take the sport into another financial category and to make sure that this isn't just a blip, that we can organize this sport together. We can organize everybody. We can put all the funding in one place, or at least bring it together in a cohesive manner. And so I would say there's a competitive nature of it all, but there's also like, if our true goal is to improve the sport, we got to keep taking those steps. And we're not there until there's a complete season, until there's entire businesses built around the sport and people making money. Because I think sometimes our sport is backwards, and they're like, well, this person gets paid this, or this group makes this. I'm like, that's good. All the other sports are making a lot of money. They're making money on side things around the sport. So we at least need our sport to make money. That's what's going to give it longevity. And so it can't just happen in Europe. It has to happen here too. And I think that for that to happen, groups do have to work together. And I think we've had a really good start to all of that over the last couple of years. Like I said, 5 years ago, no offense, but like you had to go run all these college meets. And that was your only opportunity. So we've already seen a ton of movement.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been interesting to see how things have taken shape here domestically in the last few years with, folks like yourself. And you're one of the few, I think, that has kind of multiple opportunities for athletes throughout the year. We have some great kind of one-off events. And in my point earlier, events that you've worked with and collaborated with, but having more of those opportunities here domestically to see especially the U.S. athletes run has been really awesome. So, I think there's a lot to look forward to. I think there's more that we can talk about that probably just on a topic alone. And then there's like the whole vision of what does LA 2028 mean, and how do we build to that. So I think we're going to have you on again, because there's again just a whole roadmap ahead we gotta start laying out. But I would like to say
solve all the problems.
Yeah, solve all the problems. Solve all the problems, and then celebrate in LA on the beach. But I think for today, I want to say thank you so much for joining us. We're super excited to be working with you guys again, and being a part of Cross Champs coming up. So those of you out there, you have a lot to look forward to. Jesse, Jesse, anything that you want to leave folks with, Cross Champs or otherwise, as we look ahead?
It's hard. I think if you have the ability to get out that Thursday morning and come out and watch the Indy 5K and come and watch the cross country pro races, as always, I think cross country is such a great example of our sport, and it highlights a whole week of amazing cross country with NCAA's coming, and then all of the big high school races coming the next 2 weeks. And so it's a fun time of year for our sport. But yeah, I mean, tune in, come out. It's cross country. It's what makes our sport, so much fun. It's what got most of us started in running was, joining the cross country team. So gotta, get you in your feels.
Yeah. Got it. Yeah. Get back to the roots. I love it. Well, thanks so much for joining us, Jesse. And we'll see you here in Austin in just a few weeks.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
That's going to wrap up today's show. Again, Jesse Williams from Sound Running, the founder there, 5 years in and just growing his event portfolio and those opportunities for the athletes here in the U.S. And you heard just how those things are developing, and he's kind of iterating on what they're doing. So very excited to have them in our backyard in Austin in a few weeks alongside the running event itself. So looking ahead, as we mentioned, we'll be broadcasting the Cross Champs on Thursday, November 21st, bright and early that morning. We'll have a press conference the day before, and then tied in with the running event, we'll be producing a live show for the running event each day of the conference, which is on that Wednesday, November 20th, and then again on November 21st, Thursday. FloTrack will also be live shooting our show from the convention floor each of those 2 days, midday. So a lot to look forward to. And then coming out of TRA, we'll have a ton with just some product highlights and insights from some of the brands out there on the convention center floor, looking ahead to what they have coming in 2025. So super excited about that. And along all that, there's a lot of cross-country action in between, with NCAA regionals coming up, NCAA cross-country championships. So a lot of postseason action that we are looking forward to and building towards, and we'll be on site in Madison the day after Cross Champs. So back-to-back duties across the country. So stay tuned for all that action as we get closer to the end of the year, which will then lead into our NCAA track coverage at Boston University December 7th before we take a little downtime from the new year. But until then, thanks again for joining episode number 696. Thanks to our guest, Jesse Williams. And we will see you guys back on the FloTrack Pod here real soon.